Well, hello. Yeah, this is interesting because I have never done a video for YouTube. I've never thought about starting a YouTube channel, and apart from my acting videos, I'm an actor, and so I've got like a few show reels out there. But I figured, like, I woke up this morning and I was like, I really have a lot to share with everybody. Like, I believe I have a message that I'm not really sharing with the world yet. And so a big part of me was really hesitant to do this because there is a lot of stigma and a lot of self-stigma around mental illness and very little psychoeducation. No matter how much we try and convince ourselves that social media is changing the face of mental illness with hashtags such as Mental Health Awareness Week or, Break the Stigma. It's all great and such, but we're not really putting a face to mental illness. And I think that that's one of my goals and one of the reasons why I'm doing my graduate studies in mental health and counseling and eventually my PhD in psychology. So yes, I have had a life that has been affected by mental illness for as long as I can remember. I was first diagnosed with bipolar depression, bipolar disorder. A lot of you know it as depression. Mine manifests mostly as depression. When I was 17, I was in my final year of high school. And it was interesting because I was always a really, really happy child and got along with everybody, and I still do. Very easygoing person. I make friends super, super easily. But it was weird. There was just like one day that I woke up and everything was grey. It like, within an instant, my whole life changed and I didn't know what was going on. And my mother, who is a medical professional, said we should get you to go and see a doctor. And I was like, what for? Like, I'm not even sick. And I didn't know how to handle not having a physical illness, but having to go to the doctor. Like, bear in mind, I was just a teenager. I was somebody who did really, really well academically. I still do. One of the top achievers. Very much a perfectionistic personality. And it was difficult for me to go and sit across from a psychiatrist and to have her not really tell me what was going on with me, because I guess she thought that I was too young at the time to really understand it. And I think that that's where a lot of the stigma happens. So she's still my doctor till this day, and I just adore her. She's an amazing, amazing psychiatrist. But back then, I think, she probably wanted to be a little bit sensitive around the topic, and bipolar disorder back then, when I was 17, wasn't really that widely spoken about. I think it had just turned from like manic depression over to bipolar disorder. And so I remember her like sliding some papers across the table at me. And she said, I would like for you tonight when you get home to go and read this. And I will never forget seeing the words like manic depression and bipolar disorder on those papers. And I was like, yikes, man, like this is big, because I'm somebody who's always reading, and even as a child, I always read books. I remember as like an 8-year-old, I used to go into my grand's. She had this little room in the back that had all these medical books. And I remember like reading a lot about medicine. And I had a sister who wanted to be a doctor, and so we were always around that jargon. So I knew, even though my psychiatrist at the time didn't think that I would know, I knew what bipolar disorder was. And I think when you first get that diagnosis, It is a shock. And then the grieving process begins. You know, I think most people think that you only grieve when someone passes away, but I went through a long grieving process. And I think I grieved my mental health and my reputation. Sorry. And I still do. It's really tough. But yeah, there's a grieving process, because when you get a diagnosis such as that, you know it's never going to go away. So what was the point of me doing this video? It wasn't to cry. Definitely not that. So this would have been a great acting audition. Wow. Would have definitely gotten the part for that. But no, I wanted to do this video because I know that there are so many people out there who are going through exactly the same thing. And there are a lot of teens out there right now who are experiencing what I experienced back then, and they have no one to talk about. I mean, to talk to. So, I was very fortunate in that I always had parents who were very supportive and who still are. And I have a very loving partner who knows everything about me. I waited a few days before I told him, because I was like, yikes, like I don't want this to take away my ability to be in a healthy relationship. And I think that over the years, that was my biggest concern. It was like, would I ever meet anybody and be able to disclose my diagnosis and be in a healthy relationship? Because when you have bipolar disorder, it adds to the conflict. And that is like a whole other story that I would get into. But I know that the majority of people who have this diagnosis struggle immensely with relationships, especially if the disorder is not being controlled, or and when I say controlled, I mean you really have to control it. So if they're not on medication, and they're not seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist, it really makes relationships very difficult. And so what I'm hoping to achieve with this channel, it sounds so weird to say, is to bring awareness to bipolar disorder and other mental illnesses, but mostly bipolar, because that's what I know. And yeah, this is just me going to be completely unplugged and honest with you. I want people to see that bipolar disorder is not just the lady from Evil Genius, you know, who puts a bomb around somebody's neck, or Ted Bundy, or, you know, any sort of mass murderer. That's not bipolar disorder. That's other outside influences as well, you know, together with mental illness that goes untreated. So I don't want people to have this misconception that all people who are mentally ill are going to hold a bank hostage, like, you know, or plan this crazy sort of I don't know if you guys have seen Evil Genius, but when I heard at the end, they were like, well, it was determined that she had bipolar disorder. I was like, well, great. Let's add more to that stigma then. You know, so yeah, what I'm essentially trying to achieve with this channel is to let everybody see who I really am, and that people with bipolar disorder can be very functional. I have a great life, apart from my messy hair today, because we went out last night. And that's also quickly something that I could mention is we went out, and when you have this diagnosis, you have to take into consideration how everything is going to affect you. So we went out to support my partner's friend. He has a band. And we went out to the sports bar. And like the average person would have stayed out until like 3 or 4 a.m. And they would have been fine. They would have woken up today and be like, oh, well, I'm just going to chill and watch movies today. And for a person who has bipolar disorder, it's different. You have to set some rules, and I live very, very much by the rules. So I have this thing of like, I have to be in bed by the same time every night, and I have to wake up at the same time every morning. And if I don't, I have to be able to deal with the consequences of my decisions. And that means that usually within a day or two, I'm going to feel the effects. So it's going to be either really bad mania or, well, hypomania in my case, or depression. And then I go, is it worth it? Like, I'm not a party pooper, don't get me wrong, but I want to help people who have this disorder to, start creating functional wellness plans in which you can live a fun and happy life, but you don't have to get yourself into a situation where your episodes are just up and down and up and down. You can control this diagnosis, this disorder, to a certain degree. And why not try your best to do that if you can? I know that the brain is super powerful, and if it wants you to lose, it'll make you lose. But why not make the process easier on yourself? So I don't drink alcohol. Sometimes I occasionally do, like I'll have one drink, but I'm always with my partner who, is my backup. He'll be like, I think you've had enough. And then I'll go, yeah, you're right. Like, he's my sounding board. But I didn't drink last night. I made that decision because I didn't want to wake up with the possibility of having to face depression today, or of having to take 4 or 5 days to pick myself up again. It's just like, you have to weigh the pros and the cons, and you have to decide what is worth more. Your mental health and going through this week in a healthy way, or spending 4 more hours in a bar. To me, that's a pretty easy decision. I think a lot of other people will struggle with that because they might not be where I am right now in their journey. They may not have come to the acceptance of their diagnosis. There's a lot of denial that goes into that diagnosis, a lot. Like, it took me, I would say easily 10 years to fully accept and embrace my diagnosis. And when I say embrace, I mean really know that it's a part of me and that it's not something to be ashamed of. When people have diabetes and high cholesterol, they're not ashamed of it. They do something about it. And that's how I feel about this diagnosis. So, yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much. I think that this is great for a first little episode. But yeah, so I'm glad that you guys are watching this video. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of people who are going to be like, no, this is not how it is. On YouTube, I guess you always have the ones who like you and the ones who don't. So you can make up your own mind about it. But yeah, thank you for listening. And I will be back again soon. And this is me, going to be completely transparent. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. Bye.